We love Twitter on this show. I would encourage you to follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, at JD Piquel. Some folks call it X. We just haven't gotten there yet. I'm going to be real. Maybe by kickoff we'll start calling it X. I don't know. But Deion Sanders in Colorado will always make waves whatever they do. Just the nature of the beast. Whenever Deion Sanders is your head coach, or whenever you're Deion Sanders, every single move you make, it's going to make headlines. Now, he made some headlines recently with an article that came out, and then he made some headlines with Deion Sanders and his things he said on Twitter. We'll talk about that right now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We love college football. You love college football. We talk about it during the month of May. Pretty straightforward. Make sure you're dialed in here so you don't miss a minute of what we got going on. We talk about it all year long, but the fact that we're talking about it during the month of May feels like a pretty good indicator that we're in lockstep. All right. So, Deion Sanders, to recap it here, there was an article that came out from The Athletic that I thought was a pretty good article. I thought it was pretty fair. I don't think it put him in a bad light. I don't think it put players in a bad light that were cut from his team. But the article was all about the players that he cut and tracking what happened to them since they were cut at Colorado a year later. And everyone just saw the quote graphic of Xavier Smith saying that he didn't even take the time to get to know him, saying that he was destroying kids' confidence, and they took those two quotes and ran with it. Now, The Athletic does great work. The reality of it is you have to pay to read The Athletic's articles. So people probably clicked on the link, saw it cost a certain amount of money to read the article, and said, you know what, I saw the quote graphic, I get the point, I got my narrative, let's run to Twitter with it. And so a lot of people got after Deion and saying, this guy is not being compassionate to players. He should help them find a new place to play. And all these things were said about Deion Sanders. And I came on this show yesterday and just told you, I don't care. I don't care. Is it fair? Of course not. But guess what? It's college football. It's not supposed to be fair. It's not fair that Georgia gets all the better players. It's not fair that Alabama gets all the better players. But that's how the sport works. It's not fair that Colorado went 1-11. That was what Deion Sanders had to work with from a roster standpoint. It's not fair. But guess what? He has to win football games. That is the job he is being paid to do. And a 1-11 roster is not going to magically turn into a 12-0 roster. So guess what? We got to make some changes. Son, we appreciate your time, but you don't have a spot here. You're not going to play here. You should probably hit the portal. I got some better players I can bring in here, and they're going to take your spot. Is it fair? No. But again, that's the job. That's what this whole thing requires. So I had no issue with that. I had zero issue with that. However, that article and the quote graphic, people ran with. Remember that? Shedeur Sanders, he went to Twitter. We discussed this yesterday and just defended his dad. Now, I personally wouldn't have done it that way, but he defended his dad. I get it. He said, to be honest, I don't even remember this guy who was being cited in this article or in this quote graphic. He must have been very mid at best. Again, I probably would not have done it this way, but it's Shedeur Sanders. One, that's your coach. That's your dad. There's a personal element to it when people are throwing shade at someone that you care about and someone that you support with all of your heart. Also, that's your football team. Like Shedeur Sanders is not some scrub just sitting the bench here, a part of this team. He is the front-facing part of this whole organization next to his dad, Deion Sanders. He's the quarterback. Those are your troops. You defend your troops. So I don't have an issue with him talking trash. I did say this yesterday, and I still feel the same way 24 hours later. If I am in the Shedeur Sanders camp and I'm seeing the mock drafts, I'm seeing Shedeur Sanders being put anywhere from 1 to 5 or wherever he's going to end up in 2025, I would maybe pull him aside and say, hey, look, I get it. I understand you want to defend your dad. But I think Shedeur Sanders today needs to try and help Shedeur Sanders a year from now when it gets to the NFL draft and it's your name being called from the commissioner. Because we saw the odds already in Vegas for him to be the number one pick taken since this tweet. They've gone down. And if Spencer Rattler is getting dragged through the proverbial mud for a Netflix documentary of stuff he was doing when he was a senior in high school, for the way he was speaking to teammates on camera, what does it say about you if you're talking to former teammates this way via Twitter? It's just, I don't think it's the look that you want to have. And I'm all for defending your people. I'm all about that. Told a story yesterday about how I got thrown out of a high school basketball game for shouting at a ref for my brother getting fouled hard. Like, I'm all about it. But people need to help Shedeur Sanders see, like, there's a bigger picture here, brother. There is more on the line for you here. There's more at stake for you here. All right? So I was okay with that. Wouldn't have done it that way. I think there's another way to go about it. I was okay with that. So then we started to see some more tweets come out after we got off the air. And I said it at the opening, I'm totally okay with trash talk too. Like, I have no issue with you talking trash because at some point in time during the fall, there is going to be a time to back it up. So Shedeur Sanders can say what he wants. He's going to hit the field and play. Deion Sanders can say what he wants. He's going to go coach in the fall, and they're going to have to live with whatever their record is. And they understand what they're inviting. They understand the way that they're being perceived by some of the things they're saying on Twitter. It is what it is. So I'm okay with it. But I would say this about the way that Deion Sanders was tweeting yesterday. I don't really like it. I don't think it's the best look for him as a head coach, because you got folks tweeting at Deion Sanders and saying, hey, tell your son that he's not the greatest thing ever. Y'all went 4-8 last year. And then Deion Sanders replies to my guy and says, my son's going to be a top 5 pick. What's your son going to be? LOL. And it's hilarious. He won Twitter. He won the moment. But like Coach Prime, my man's got 271 followers and Tank Dell in a Houston Texans jersey as his profile picture. Do we really need to respond to that? Is that really a battle that we have to win today? Then he says, I got time. Coach Prime, with all due respect, maybe you shouldn't have time. Maybe there are more pressing things that we can be giving our attention to than a dude with 271 followers and a Tank Dell profile picture. Maybe there's a little bit more things at stake here that we can give a little bit more of our thoughts to and our effort to. This doesn't need to have our energy, Coach. It doesn't need it. It doesn't need it, and I don't think you need to do something like that, because if Deion Sanders never replies to those tweets, and then he goes out and quotes a tweet from a college kid's stats and just says Lod, and I'm like, again, I never even see those tweets if Deion Sanders with 1.8 million followers doesn't quote tweet it and respond. It's not the look that you want to have. You don't want to be tweeting at 18 to 22-year-olds. You're a college football head coach. That's not something that you need to be worried about. You don't need to win Twitter. We need to win football games. Okay? We need to win football games. We don't need to worry about winning the interaction with a college kid playing at Eastern Kentucky or Austin Peay or wherever he was at. It's not important. It's not important. And the thing I would also say, Deion Sanders has made his own path because he's done things his own way. And Deion Sanders is not worried about what anybody has to say. And that's why he's been who he is. That's why he's been so successful. It's why he was able to play 2 sports professionally. It's why he's an NFL Hall of Famer. It's why he's the head coach at Colorado football, because he's done it his own way. And so he's not worried about what anybody else has to say, as I just mentioned. But I do think it's maybe worth noting, hey, who's not doing things like this? Who's not tweeting at people with 271 followers? Who's not tweeting at a player at Eastern Kentucky? Kirby Smart's not doing that. Nick Saban, I don't think, ever used Twitter. Kalen DeBoer's not doing that. Like Lane Kiffin, he'll tweet a little bit, but he'll more so troll people with emojis. It's a little more subtle. Like, they're not mixing it up and going mano-a-mano on Twitter because they have more pressing things to do. Deion Sanders has more pressing things to do. And so the thing I'm trying to say here is Deion is above all of this. Why are we giving this attention? I said the exact same thing about Dabo Swinney. So don't say this is a Coach Prime thing in the comment section. This has nothing to do with Coach Prime. This is all about being a college football head coach. Dabo Swinney gets a call on his radio show from Tyler from Spartanburg talking about what Clemson hasn't done and questioning Dabo Swinney, the way they do things. And Dabo Swinney just lays into the guy. Just lays into him, gives him a piece of his mind. I'm sure he was fed up at that point. We came on this show the very next day and we're like, Coach, if you don't respond that way, I don't even know who Tyler from Spartanburg is. So is it fair? Again, no, it's not fair. It's not fair that you're supposed to just have people say wild things about you on social media and just brush it off and just move on, act like you didn't hear it. But I don't think it's worth your time. I don't think it's worth your time, and I think, to be honest, you're above all that. So that's how we feel about it. At the end of the day, though, Deion Sanders can have the last laugh in all of this if Colorado wins football games. That's what it comes down to. That's why I'm okay with trash talk. That's why I don't think it's something that is too inappropriate if you're a player, but if you're Deion Sanders, we got to win ball games. We got to win ball games. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.